All right, colleagues, it happened. The first pop up debate of this school year. I want to talk through exactly what I did to get this movement started. The way that you start a pop up debate is so important. Debatably, the most important pop up debate in a teacher's school year is pop up debate number one. It sets things in motion that are really important. So I'm going to talk about all the things that I did to try to just help you to think through your own approach. Quick shout out to the teachers in Wahpeton, North Dakota. Got this mug while I was visiting them for some PD days. We talked about pop-up debates. We talked about the 5 key beliefs, the will to learn, these 6 things. We did all types of fun stuff. Much love to the teachers of Wahpeton. All right, so pop-up debate lives and breathes on the reality that in a pop-up debate, every student has to participate. That is the key. But in today's day and age where so many students are nervous about public speaking or get anxious about it, you have to be careful about when to do that first pop-up debate. So what I do is I wait 3 weeks. I do not start pop-up debates until we've had 3 weeks of school. And during those 3 weeks, every day in class, 1, 2, 3 times, we're engaging in think, pair, share, where students write an answer to a question in their notebook, they share it with a partner, and then they share their answers to the whole class. And during that share portion to the whole class, sometimes I take volunteers, but most frequently I just call on students and I keep track of who I call on my clipboard. Because what I want to make sure of before I do my first pop-up debate is that every student has experienced multiple times that you're going to speak in this class for the whole class to hear, and that you will not perish when you do that. But also, you're always going to be ready because of the think and the pair parts of think, pair, share. So this guy's not going to cold call you, but he will warm call you. And he won't justify that in any way. He will just do it as a matter of course. So once those 3 weeks are done, now in my head, it's week 4. I'm super excited. Finally, we get to start our pop-up debate journey. I'm pumped and I'm trying to find where in my lessons that week can I work it in. So today in 2 of my classes, we had just completed a unit and I got a great question for him. What was an interesting thing that we learned about during unit 1? That's the question that I gave to my students. And as a warm-up, they wrote an answer to that question in their spiral notebook. And by the way, that question is a really useful one for something that I write about in the Will to Learn called valued within. So anytime that you ask students to look at a whole unit and identify what was interesting about this unit, what you're having them do is practice the reality that there are interesting things that you learn about. Now, they may not be the most interesting things in the world, but they are interesting. So my students wrote about that today as their warm-up, and then we did a couple other things, and I said, okay, let's go back to what you wrote there. So what we're going to do is a pop-up discussion. And I call it a discussion early on because I want to kind of take the pressure away. I don't want them to think, oh, I have to debate with my peers right now, because I'm aware of the fact that a lot of them are not going to like what I'm about to say. So in a pop-up discussion, I explain everyone has to speak at least once in response to the question. Today, you only need to stand up and answer the question. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to elaborate. You don't have to defend what you select. You can simply read off your paper and look at the paper the whole time. You can simply say, the most interesting thing we learned about was champa rice, and then sit down. Okay, students, do you have any questions? All right, let's go ahead and practice what you're going to say with your partner. So notice this is kind of a think, pair, share because they thought about it when they wrote their answer. Now they're pair sharing, and now they're going to do the pop-up debate. So then I say, all right, open floor. If there's ever a lull in the debate, I'll call on you, but the floor is now open for the first person to pop up and give their answer. And so they did it. And what I'm doing as a teacher is, this is really intentional, I'm just sitting up in the front of the room. I'm keeping track on my clipboard of who's participated. And when there's a lull, when no one is talking, I just start to call on students. And today I was actually kind of aware of the kids who I thought would be most nervous. So I called on them really quickly. Because the thing is, when you're super anxious about public speaking in a pop-up debate, you're probably not going to go until you're called on. And the longer that you sit there stewing in your anxiety, the worse you're going to feel. So I've kind of identified in my head who I think is going to struggle here. And I'm calling on them really quickly. In the first class I did the pop-up debate in today, I would say about 50% of the students needed to be called upon. In the second class, I was blown away, and I told them this, you guys really shocked me, because in that class, about 80% of the students stood up of their own accord. And I'm careful to say, it's all right if I have to call on you. That I told you I would do that. That's not a bad thing, but it does really keep the debate moving along if you stand up on your own. So well done, those of you who did that. All right, now after the debate, this is a really important part of the whole first pop-up debate of the year. I always ask them something like this: who felt nervous? And here's how I framed it today. I said, all right, Good job, you guys. Great work. That was fun. But I'm guessing that not all of you felt like it was 100% fun. So I want you to rank your level of nervousness during that pop-up debate from 0 to 100%. 100%, I'm like crawling under my table, weeping uncontrollably. I'm debilitated absolutely by my nervousness. 0%, I've got ice in my veins. There's no problem here whatsoever. I stood up and felt nothing. Share that with your partner. So they're sharing with their partner. They're doing a lot of anxiety release right here, just kind of being honest with someone. And I'm walking around saying, yeah, great. That's good. Oh, yeah, you felt that nervous? Like one student, Alora, she said, I felt 75% nervous. I said, man, I couldn't even tell. That was excellent. Good job standing up there, getting after it. There was another student, Kaylin, who was the first one to stand up in my second hour. I said, Kaylin, nice job leading the charge there. That was excellent. Kudos to you for starting a trend. And after they do that little pair share about their levels of anxiety, I say, all right, raise your hand if you felt at least 1% nervous. And most of the hands go up. And I say, look around. It's normal to feel nervous when you're speaking in public in front of your peers. I feel that way still, and I've done it for my adult life. But I still feel at least 1% nervous, usually more than 1%. So what we're trying to accomplish when we do pop-up debates is to practice the reality that you can experience nervousness and still perform. And then the last thing that I did is I told the students a story about how I in high school was not often expected to speak publicly in front of my peers, and how this made it harder when I was an adult in college or after college to just deal with that anxiety, because I wasn't used to dealing with that in a productive way. When I came into situations where I couldn't avoid public speaking, like a college discussion section of a class or a job interview, it was much harder for me than I wish that it had been. So that's why we're going to do pop-up debates this year. That's one of the reasons why I think this is so important. You all did a wonderful job. Now let's move into the rest of our lesson. So that's how I do it. It's not the perfect way, but there's some really important things that are happening there. Number one, I've established the norm in the very first pop-up debate that everyone will speak. Even if you don't volunteer yourself, I will call on you. And because of those 3 preceding weeks, today we had 100% participation. And once you have 100% participation in a pop-up debate, you're just much more likely to have that every single pop-up debate that follows. Now, I've got some other classes that I'm going to introduce pop-up debate to this week that I'm a little more concerned in terms of if anyone will just refuse to stand up. But if someone does do that, all that I'm going to do is quickly move on from them. I'll call on them and they won't stand up, and I'll say, okay, I'll move on to the next person. I'm not going to make a big deal about it in class, but I'll follow up with them individually right after class, and I'll say, hey, tell me what happened. How were you feeling? Like what led to you not participating? And I'm going to start to work with them on how I can help them to be successful in this endeavor. I will work to get there. And one last thing, I do have a student this year with documentation that says that the student can't be called on by the teacher to speak. So the student has documented issues with anxiety and public speaking. And so in that case, I'll obey the documentation and I'll work with their caseload manager to see if there's any way that we can modify so that this individual can be successful and grow in this area while also respecting the documentation that she has. All right, that's how I did it. You can take, modify, use as you wish. In terms of the will to learn, there's 2 strategies. One, I asked a question about what was most interesting in the unit that we just finished. That's valued within. And then 2, the last strategy in the book is called normalized struggle. That's what I was doing when I asked them who felt at least 1% nervous. Hey, if you do pop-up debates this year, let me know. Talk to me in the comments. Reach out. It's incredibly rewarding and fulfilling when I hear other teachers taking pop-up debates and making them more amazing than I make them, which, by the way, happens every single year. People take my simple ideas and make them way better than I could possibly make them for their kids. Cheers, colleagues. I'll see you next time.